you are from Argentine.
Yes.
So how does somebody from Argentina lands in Vienna and coaches the only Austrian MMA fighter in the UFC?
Well, that's a good question. I have been around a lot, like I've been traveling around the world before I came here. And yes, I was born and raised in Argentina. And then, I started to train martial art when I was a kid. And then everything brings me to the point that I want to start to fight MMA professionally. And that put me out of Argentina, and I traveled to Brazil first, to compete and to live there. And then everywhere, like Germany, Sweden, America, and California, Miami. I've been everywhere. So, and then I end up here, right before Alex get the chance to get to UFC. And then we came to work and we prepared him, and finally he got there and he make a really good career.
For those of you who live under a rock, Alex is Aleksandar Rakic, Rocket. He is the only Austrian fighter in the UFC right now, and he is probably gonna fight for a title really soon. How did you start with martial arts?
Well, I started when I was 7. Actually, I wanted to start when I was 5. I told to my mom that I wanted to train martial art, and she laughed at me because I was very serious. And then she saw that I was super serious about it, and she told me, okay, I will bring you to train martial art. And she bring me there to a club near to my place. And the sensei there was, he told me that I was too little, and I need to wait more. So I have to wait for 2 years more until they can really teach me. And so I get back there when I was 7. And I started to train karate, and I was also after karate a taekwondo class with a woman that she teach taekwondo. So I stayed to the karate class and then the taekwondo class. So I do like a mix of things. But I didn't know what it was. I just like to kick and punch and everything. And I have this like, since I'm a boy, since I'm a little boy, I like to watch movies, and about martial art, like these Chinese movies, like 2 hours punching each other, doing kung fu stuff, and I like it since I was very little. So yeah, I start like this, and then like I get more into, and one thing took me to the other, and I ended up doing, when I was older, jiu-jitsu, and the gym that I train, like they have this idea at that time, when you do jiu-jitsu, you have to do MMA. To prove your jiu-jitsu. We're talking about a year 2000 something, like.
And this was in Brazil, or?
This was in Argentina. Yeah. It was in a school that it was from Brazil. It was a Brazilian teacher there, and they have this idea that you have to fight MMA, And I like the idea, I was already a green belt in Kyokushin. I was, I think, a brown belt training Aikido. I do some wrestling, I do everything that I could. I just love martial art, And when I finally get into jiu-jitsu, I was like super excited because it was super like, physical, and you can do chokes and arm bars and everything. So I was like super excited about it, and I said, like, okay, let's do it. Let's do MMA and see. At that time it was not even MMA, it was Valetudo, It was like a super underground thing that you do,
So in your school they had this ideas like Valetudo is professional jiu-jitsu basically.
Yeah, it's like you need to prove that your art was stronger than the other arts, and you need to prove that jiu-jitsu can take any other martial art down.
Okay, so it was that mentality.
At that time, it was not MMA like it's nowadays, that you need to be well-rounded, and you need to train all the skills. I remember, it was not really developed, so I remember they just give you a boxing gloves and to one guy and say, okay, you punch him until you knock him out, and you try to take him down until you submit him. That was the training. Yeah, that was the training, and it was like fighting, It was not really like it was not like training. It was like, I remember we were getting up there on the stairs, to the gym, and you have these butterflies on your stomach that you're gonna do like a fight, and I never got that even later in professional fights because I was like, you're kind of like scared, you don't know what's coming. And
how old were you like at the time?
When I was doing that, I think I was 23.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started jiu-jitsu very late, like at that age, 23 I think it was. And I started to compete right after, because I was competing already in Kyokushin. And when I came to jiu-jitsu, I said to my coach that I want to compete after 2 weeks training. And he laughed at me, because you just came in. But I have 15 years experience in martial arts, So I've been doing that for martial art for long. So I just wanted to compete again, And even if I didn't know anything about grappling, I just want to test myself there, Like I came back with this hungry, to compete. So it was cool. And then years later, I started to do MMA professionally.
Yeah. So like that Valetudo was like for nothing. Like it's just a boxer or like a kickboxer and a wrestler or a jiu-jitsu guy.
We have good guys there in the gym, that they come from other disciplines. Like I remember we have it's a good friend of mine, Javier. He was a very good Thai boxer. And he killed everybody with the low kicks, So he was the greatest Thai boxer there, and we have to spar him. We have to use jiu-jitsu, He was good in jiu-jitsu too. But he do just the part of the striker. Or then you have a good boxer. I remember it was a good boxer coming from Russia, and he punched everybody. It was super, super hard to do it, But that was how you train at that time. It was not so much knowledge about training. It just need to be tough. And I remember people like it happened with me that people pulling me out at the end of the round because I not even hear the sound of the clock because you were so like tunnel vision and so focused like a fight, like a street fight, like you don't hear anything, So it was,
like the adrenaline and like you're really fighting,
blind, like you really were not. I was not learning, I was just fighting there, So, but it was good at the time, like when you're young, you kind of like you need to do something like that,
When did you leave Argentina?
I left when I was 29. After I make a few pro fights, and I wanted to expand my knowledge, so I wanted to go to Brazil, to compete there in jiu-jitsu and MMA. So, Argentina is like, it was not that big about MMA or any competition, like even if I compete a lot in grappling there, we didn't have like a huge tournament at that time. So I decided, okay, I will go to Brazil because it's the Mecca, it's the best place to go and it's very close to Argentina. So I say like, I need to go there and test myself there. And I went there, I lived for 2 years there. I trained, I was living in Salvador, Bahia. It's the third biggest city there. I compete in Rio too. I did very good. In jiu-jitsu and grappling, I win every competition that I compete there. I lost against really good guys in Abu Dhabi. I think it was a trial for going to Abu Dhabi, and it was a very good experience. And
at this point, you were a professional
MMA fighter. I have two pro fights in MMA that I made in Argentina, and I came to Brazil to make my third fight in a huge event, like a really big. Now when I look back, I was not ready for that event, and it was everybody there. It was Murilo Bustamante, Wanderlei Silva, like Lyoto Machida. Everybody was there in that event, in Capital Fight in the capital of Brazil. I have a really good opponent. And I didn't know, I just wanted to fight. So,
I think Brazilians like doing that, like bring a guy from another country and give him like.
I was, I was very lucky because I met a good friend of mine nowadays, that he helped me a lot to train. So he basically did the whole logistic and bring me to the gyms there to train. So I have a really good training for, I think 8 weeks, and I trained really hard, like never before. And I ended up winning that fight in the rear naked choke in the second round. So it was like, wow, nobody expected.
You choke like you did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on a Brazilian guy in Brasilia.
That was fun because even the commentators on the TV, they were like, I was completely controlling the situation, and they were saying like, yeah, he's not know what he's doing, and it's gonna fall because he got the bag, but it's in the wrong way. It was not in the wrong way. It was a wrestling move that they don't know, you know. So it was a very actually good way to control the position in MMA, and well, I ended up choking this guy in the second round, and then that opened another fight for me in Brazil. That I also win with the guillotine in the first round, and that opened the door for me to go to Germany. So I ended up working in MMA Spirit later in Germany, in Frankfurt.
Okay. So. Did you was this like the idea that you will become a professional fighter or coach?
No.
Because you have a formal education, like you did school and you studied and you have a master's in sports science
university
too.
degree, sports. So. Well, look, they offered me to fight MMA when I was 24, like in a big event there in Argentina, and I say no, you know, like, and they were like, all the sponsors, they would go crazy on me because I say I'm not interested, you know, and I said, why not? And I said, like, because I want to finish my career. So it took me like 4 years to finish the career, and then afterwards, when I get my diploma, and I give my diploma to my mom, I said, like, now I'm graduated, so, you know, like, cannot be proud, you know, for the family, you know, and then I say, okay, now I'm gonna do what I wanted to do, and it's to fight, you know, but just because I love to fight, but it was never a goal like, make it to the top or make it to UFC or anything like that. I just wanted to fight, you know. It's like I enjoy fighting a lot. I enjoy what fighting gives you, you know, the purpose that it gives you in life, and, you know, have this like Budo mentality background, like martial art mentality, not so much like, you know, some fighters, they have this fighting mentality, like hooligan fighting thing. It's like, we tough, we drink beer, and we fight, and I'm not like that. I'm more like, you know, when I was growing up, I have a very good sensei that he came to Argentina from Japan, so he was a Japanese guy, and he lived in Argentina, and I've been with him since I was around 14 to 22, 23 years old, like training with him, and we learn a lot about Budo, you know, about love for martial arts, you know, and...
was this Aikido or Karate?
We train Aikido. I've been training Karate already, but with him we train Aikido, and he was a Kyokushin Karate also, black belt, and a Judo black belt. And so he was 3 different black belts, you know, and he got his black belt in the university in Japan. That is kind of something that you do when you go to university there, you know. So he knew everything, you know. It was amazing, and more than an amazing martial artist, he was an excellent role model, you know. So we all learn martial arts through him, you know, and that idea stays with me later when I start to train jiu-jitsu. I didn't adopt so much the Brazilian way of jiu-jitsu. I keep that Japanese mentality of martial art, and I bring the techniques from jiu-jitsu, you know, to this. So that's why we, in my classes, we still have, you know, you make a line, you have respect for your partner, you know, you have all this etiquette, you know, like to keep the structure of the training in the same way that it used to be, you know. It's like, it's very similar to Kyokushin or Aikido or, you know, like Judo, very traditional.
So you separate like the sport and the martial art a little bit to make it...
I think the sport is a nice part, you know, like the competition part is a nice part of martial art, but it's like maybe 10 or 15 years, if you're lucky, you can compete, you know, and then it goes away. But martial art is all your life, you know, so it's like it's a way of life. So it's hard for me to see only as a sport, you know. It's much more than that. I live and I breathe this, you know. Like I remember one time I was in an interview in Sweden, and the guys asked me what I was doing in my spare time, and I mean, like, what do you mean in spare time? You know, like, I have only this. Like, when I go home, I'm still doing something for this. Like, even if it's resting or relax, you know, I do that just to be better on what I'm doing. You know, it's like there's nothing separate. It's not that I go and do a completely different thing and not involved in martial arts anymore for a moment, and then I go back to the gym and I do things for martial arts. All my life is this. Imagine that I've been 7 years since I was a kid, that I didn't train, and then all the rest of my life now is being martial arts, until 41. So it's like I have more life inside this, doing this, than outside, so it's hard for me to see it separately,